I'll turn on, when big storms are coming, I'll turn on James Spann, on the internet and then watch until you would take over the coverage from him.
James and I go way back.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to get into some of that too. I'm actually going to redo the intro real quick because I forgot to hit record.
Go ahead,
on it.
redo the intro.
So yeah, basically, this is episode 8 of our podcast. Last episode 7, we had JP on, and I jokingly said it was going to be the last episode. And
I don't know why you did that.
I know, it kind of felt like it because it's been about 9 months since we've recorded one. But this is trying something new, so bear with us.
Yep.
This is our first podcast in the studio, but we're also having a remote guest, and our guest is none only. Is that right? Or not all?
None other than
Glenn Burns, the Atlanta meteorologist legend. So,
yes, absolutely.
Man, we're super.
Glenn, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for your patience getting everything set up, but we're happy to be here.
Yeah.
Any chance I get to talk about weather, I'm in.
That's
I love
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, Glenn's been very patient with us as we figure all this out. So he's a patient man. So I'm very, very thankful for that. But yeah, this is just a quick overview of this podcast since we're kind of coming back from a hiatus. We're a disaster response nonprofit, but this podcast, we talk about anything from trees to weather, equipment, disaster response in general.
Storm impacts. Personal
impacts.
impacts people have experienced with
Right,
storms.
personal stories and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm a weather nerd. Daniel's a weather nerd. So this is going to be really exciting to talk to Glenn.
We're amateur meteorologists. Let's just put it that way. And by amateur, we mean we know nothing.
Right, yeah. I can read some of the models, CAPE and shear and all that good stuff. I've chased tornadoes since 2011, and actually my first tornado chase, like real tornado chase, was April 27th, and that was a crazy day to get involved in storm chasing. I kind of thought for a second, I was like, is this how every tornado outbreak is? Just absolutely nuts. But I know that was a generational.
It was a wild one.
But anyways, I want to get to know you a little bit more, Glenn. Obviously watched you for a long time here in Metro Atlanta, but how did you get into weather? Start way back when you were a child, or however that came to be.
Well, I grew up in Southeast Florida in a place called Fort Lauderdale, and I was a big surfer. And I was 16 years old, and I got the surfboard I wanted for my birthday. 16. So my birthday is in July, and so my mom drove me down to the beach with my friends, and I got a chance to try out my new surfboard. And the waves weren't too high until the afternoon. And South Florida is noted for these massive afternoon summer thunderstorms. It's a big sea breeze that washes out from the inland parts of Florida out across the ocean. So we had one of these storms forming. The sky got really dark, and the wind started picking up, and of course the surf started picking up. And me being a cocky teenager, that's not going to bother me. I don't care about these storms. The waves are getting high. So as I'm picking up my surfboard, getting ready to head back out toward the surf, a lightning bolt hit probably 100 feet from me and exploded an Australian pine tree. Boom, right in half. And the shock wave I felt just, my hair was on end. I was almost killed. And from that point on, I said, I want to know what makes that stuff work. So that's what got me into weather.
Oh, wow. That's so neat.
Yeah.
That's so neat. You got to experience it firsthand to really draw your attraction to it.
I did.
That is awesome. So I guess, how did you go from your interest to weather into a career in weather? What did that road look like?
Well, my plan was I love space, and I had a good friend that was an astronaut that went to the moon, Al Warden, on Apollo 15. He was the command module pilot. We were friends forever, and I wanted to be a reporter about space and science, but there wasn't a great market for that, so I became a general reporter. General area reporter. And my first job in 1975 was in West Palm Beach, Florida. And the meteorologist there got sick. And they said, well, you know a lot about science, right? I said, I do. Well, you're filling in. And I was scared to death, and I would never do live TV. I'd quit classes that had oral book reports in school. I was very shy, but there was nobody else to do it. And I did it. And I said, well, that's not so bad. And 3 weeks later, I became the chief.
Wow.
There was some overwhelming support. It was my first day as on the air live meteorologist. I was just overwhelmed at what went into this. So I had a producer, fortunately, and so we did a pretty good job the first day. So that first day, I was coming out of the station, which was right on the Intracoastal Waterway. And the Intracoastal Waterway is about 30, 40 feet deep. It runs parallel to the ocean down in West Palm Beach, Florida. It's a big waterway where yachts go and boats and all of that. So I came downstairs of the station and going to the parking lot to get my car and head to dinner and come home to see my wife. And this little kid ran into the lobby and he said, my daddy fell in. We were fishing. My daddy fell in. I said, oh my God. So I ran out the doors and there's the Intercoastal Waterway. It's night. I said, where is he? He fell in right here. And I didn't see anything. So I said, what the heck? I took off my jacket and tie. I dove in. And I'm swimming in the dark and I'm kicking and I can't feel anything. And all of a sudden, on my third dive down, my foot hit this guy's face. So I grabbed him by the collar and he was every bit of 300 pounds.
Oh, no.
And I dragged him up to the top. And we broke the surface. In the meantime, everybody at the station's looking out the windows. They're in the parking lot wondering what's going on. And I pulled the guy up and he didn't respond at all. And they yanked him up over the seawall. And there he was in the parking lot, laying flat in the parking lot. I said, who knows CPR? Nobody raised their hand. I said, oh, here we go. I knew CPR. And I'm pounding on his chest and I'm pounding on his chest. And all of a sudden, boom, the water spewed out and he was back.
Wow.
Man.
And so in the meantime, the newspaper got there and they took all kinds of pictures and I became kind of famous from that first day.
Wow.
And there was an overwhelming response to the station. And the station said, oh, well, this is pretty good. You're going to be our new chief.
There you go.
What a first day.
I was getting ready to retire anyway.
Right.
They just let him retire early. So there you go. And then, oh gosh, it was 3 years I worked there. And a guy happened to be vacationing in Palm Beach from a station, an NBC station in Minneapolis. And he saw me on the air and he called me, said, would you like to come to work for us? I said, it's Minneapolis and look where we are here, the ocean. Right. We'll double your salary. I said, yep, I'm there. So we packed up our dog and we moved to Minnesota and it was fortunately summer at that point in time. I had yet to experience a Minnesota winter, but they also paid for my graduate school. I went to graduate school for astrophysics and continued my interest in space. So I was a science reporter and a chief meteorologist in Minnesota. And from that point, the weather was just brutal. My wife wasn't a happy camper.
Sure.
Coming from South Florida. So WSB called and said, would you like to come and work for us? And I said, absolutely. And I came in during the ice storm of 1982. They wouldn't rent me a car at the airport because it was so dangerous.
Right.
I said, I'm from Minneapolis. This is like a Tuesday.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So they'd rent me the car, and so there the rest is history, I guess. 42 years later.
Man.
Amazing.
42 years at WSB-TV.
Amazing.
All right, is that right? You said 42 years at WSB-TV?
Yeah. Then I retired.
That is insane. And you retired from WSB-TV. Was it how long ago? 3 years ago or something?
Yes, exactly that. 3 years. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
3 years in March.
That's
wow,
amazing.
that's awesome.
That's amazing.
That is crazy. Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of, like Daniel was saying, tornado coverage. But tornadoes specifically interest me as far as severe weather goes. But one of them that comes to mind is the 2008, the March Madness tornado.
Goodness, yes.
And, that was a pretty big day.
Mm-hmm.
especially I was in high school at the time. I was like 17 years old,
Right.
but it's very
I was watching the basketball game when it happened.
really.
Yeah, I'm a big SEC sports fan, and I was watching the basketball game when that tornado hit. When all of that started happening, they rushed the fans out.
Yeah.
Right? It was just incredible to see.
Right.
Yeah, unreal. And I guess that segues into my next question. I mean, 42 years is a long time. So you can give us a couple examples if you want to. But what is your most memorable weather coverage moment or storm or?
That's an easy one. That was the blizzard of 1993.
Oh yeah.
I was looking at the weather models, and they're not as sophisticated as they were today, but having gone to graduate school in Minnesota, I learned a lot about winter weather. And so I'm looking at the model here. It's about a week out, and I'm going, nah, this can't be possible. It looked like a hurricane over in the winter. And I said, this is not possible. The barometric pressure was equivalent to a Category 2 hurricane. So, well, let's just wait until tomorrow to see if the models are still portraying this, because this is the first time I've seen this, and this is just not going to happen. This is just outrageous. This never has happened in Georgia. So the next day, I'm looking at the models, and here they are again. This thing is winding up tighter than a snail, too big for its shell. I mean, it was massive. So at our newsroom meeting in the afternoon, they wanted a weather briefing, and I said, well, we're going to have a blizzard. No, really, what's going to happen? Really? No way. How much snow do you think we'll get? I said, well, I think we could possibly get as much as 30 inches in northern Georgia. Well, you're not going to go out and say that, are you?
Right. No.
I said, I'm going to wait till tomorrow. And the National Weather Service and all the other meteorologists in town were not saying a word because it was so unusual to see this. So next day, it was a Wednesday. It was showing up just amazingly well in the computer models. All of them were agreeing on this. Still, the Weather Service was downplaying it. We could get some snow depending on the track, yada, yada. The other meteorologists wouldn't touch that with a 10-meter catapult.
Right.
So I went out and I did it. I made the forecast. Everybody got really excited. And that night, right before the blizzard hit, it was raining. I saw my whole career flash before my eyes. It's not happening. It's not happening. And I said, I stayed up really late and it was still raining. So my wife woke me up in the morning. She said, look out the window.
Oh, wow.
And there it was. It was coming down and the wind was howling, and parts of North Georgia, 25 to 30 inches.
Nailed it.
So
That's amazing.
The boss was happy.
I bet. You got it right that day.
That is
And working for WSB, the #1 TV station in the entire country. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's a privilege. It was an absolute privilege to work, and was fortunate to nail that storm.
Yeah, that's amazing.
really cool.
You were probably in Memphis, right?
I was living in
93?
Memphis at the time.
Because I was only 2 years old, but when that storm happened, we have obviously pictures of me as a baby, like in the.
You were 2 years old?
2 years
He's
old.
a kid. He's a kid.
I know, isn't that crazy? It's crazy. Yeah, I secretly hope, we get another storm like that again here in Georgia, because I'm a little bit of a snow freak too.
Yeah.
But
Wouldn't surprise me if we saw something like that this year.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm hoping. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that topic too. I'm really hoping for. We have a friend here named Thomas. I'm gonna give him a shout out real quick at the church. He's a big weather nut when it comes to winter weather.
Okay.
He's really excited about snow and stuff, and so he's eyeing this year. Just maybe this is the year we get something. But I do want to hit on, I guess. This might have been maybe right before you retired. Did you cover the Noonan EF4? Were you
Yes.
were on TV? Yeah, and we spent a lot of time in Noonan after that tornado, clearing roads and pulling trees
Well,
off
thank
houses.
you for what you do. I mean, that is very great that what you guys do. I mean, how would people survive, if they didn't have somebody like you to get those trees down and really help them out? a lot of people really are hurting after a tornado in a situation like that and don't know where to go, what to do. And thank you for doing what you do.
No, we really appreciate
Yeah,
that, Glenn. We really
thank you.
do. And
Yeah.
what was your kind of? Can you walk us through a little bit about that night? Because I know, if I remember correctly, it was a high risk day, but Georgia was actually kind of out, pretty well removed outside of the high risk area. But we still, obviously got the strongest tornado of that day, and it was
Yeah, I mean,
overnight.
just
So
seeing the signature on the radar, you knew that people were getting hurt. You knew that there was a lot of damage. We were fortunate to have our own radar, and we didn't have to worry about the National Weather Service because they have switched between different modes on the radar. And so you have a mode that's called velocity mode, and you can see the wind, basically the particles in the wind that are coming toward and away from the radar. And there was a massive signature of green and red. So the green is the wind and the particles in the wind that are moving toward the radar. The red is the area where it's moving away from the radar. So that shows you where the tornado signature is. And then I looked at something that was called a spectrum width, and it tells you what's in the air. And there was a massive debris cloud.
Right.
So we saw that on the radar. We saw it was a massive tornado, and it was a long track tornado, something that's very unusual for Georgia to see long track tornadoes like that. So again, it was just you're trying to broadcast, and people are getting hurt, and there's a lot of damage. So it was just a wicked night.
yeah,
I mean, that's got to be a challenge because you're in the process of helping people in front of the storm
Yes.
stay safe, but at the same time, you know that not everybody's going to get the memo. Not everybody's going to hear. Not everybody's
Yes.
going to turn on.
Absolutely. That's 100% right. Absolutely. And
That's gotta
that's
be
our
tough.
worry. You get people as prepared as they can be, but we weren't in that higher risk area, as you pointed out. And there's kind of a little area where people say, well, probably not going to happen. But it did.
right.
Yeah. I remember that night Warren and I had talked, and about 11:30, 11:45 maybe, shortly after
Yeah.
it hit Noonan, he texted me. He said, "We're going to Noonan tomorrow," and we were down there,
Yeah,
by about 10:30 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah, and then leave for almost 6 weeks. Thankfully it's relatively close to us. It's only about an hour and 10-minute drive, and so we were able to make multiple trips over the course of 6 weeks there. Doing the tree thing, and then we went back a year later. To still take down. Trees don't always succumb to the storm immediately, and there's hazards
Right,
left
yes.
over. And so. We spent a lot of time in that community, and it was really special to us just because it was home, for us kind of thing. So,
close by.
what is your? Because I know I said tornadoes are my favorite type of weather phenomenon. Hate what they do, obviously, but they've fascinated me since I was a child, and done a lot of research on them and stuff. That's probably my favorite, weather phenomenon to forecast. What about you, Glenn? What's your favorite, type of weather to look at models over and forecast?
I'm a hurricane guy.
Are you?
Absolutely. To watch these things spin up, just to watch everything you learned in school happen. People don't realize the power that these things generate. I mean, in a single day, it will generate as much power as an atomic bomb. I mean, just incredible storms. And there was one, I think it was Myra last year, that we saw the record uh, uh, velocity of wind. It was over 220 miles an hour. Hard to fathom that. And you see multiple hurricanes out there, and people will say, oh my goodness, what happens if they crash together and become one superstorm? Well, that can't ever happen. Fortunately, hurricanes repel each other.
Yep.
The Fujiwara effect is what that is called. So fortunately that didn't happen with the multiple hurricanes we had 2 years ago, especially in the Gulf.
Right.
And you're seeing such a change in the patterns that we're seeing with hurricanes. The amount of rainfall that we're seeing now doesn't just rain, I mean, it floods. We saw what happened, up in North Carolina. Horrible situation there. And if you look at just afternoon thunderstorms, the amount of rain that they bring these days is just insane.
It really is. There's so much rain.
Yeah.
So much rain to be seen.
Yeah, it holds a lot more moisture now. I guess what do they call that? The PWAT, the precipitable water values.
Precipitable water.
Yeah, it is pretty insane. And Helene, for us was probably one of our biggest responses. You talk about the flooding, especially up in western North Carolina. We spend a lot of time in South Georgia. We typically work from home out, so we'll prioritize our local community, then our state, and then the Southeast.
Right.
We don't go outside the Southeast just yet due to our size of our organization. But we spent so much time in South Georgia doing tree work, but obviously saw everything that was going on in western North Carolina, and actually went to Arbor Fest last year, and it had been several months after Helene up in Asheville, North Carolina, and you could still tell that catastrophic flooding had taken place there, and so it was heartbreaking.
If you look at Hurricane Milton too, that strafed eastern Georgia, the amount of trees. We have family over in South Carolina in Charleston, so we were driving and just looking at the devastation of the trees that were down, the enormity. I mean, it was just off the charts, the number of trees that went down, all facing the same direction.
Right. I spent a lot of time in 2025, early last year, driving to and from Bethune, South Carolina. So you go out I-20, and just you could see still the residual effects, just the trees. And they were actually working on a project to clear the median between the two sides of the interstate of, a full year and plus later, of all the debris that had built up from multiple Milton, and then also Helene just had left the median just devastated, just kind of trashed of trees, and they were out there cleaning it all up. But I mean, you could just see, you get near Augusta, and you could see patterns of just whole swaths of trees laying on their sides.
It was something to see,
It is.
We were fortunate that the storm deviated about 80 miles to the east. Here in Atlanta, it would have just clobbered us too, but it fortunately jogged a little east.
It did.
We commented. We were watching the coverage of it and noted there was a little right before it got to the coast of Florida.
Wobble,
it was just a little eastward jog, and it's like that could be the difference.
In the world here.
Yeah, it did. And we were fully prepared to basically cut our way out of our own county for the next 3 months, based on the initial projections. But we did. Thankfully, it did go through. Thankfully and unthankfully, I guess. A rural part of South Georgia, at least, it's not quite the population density, but obviously those people, need a lot of resources. I actually, speaking of Helene, you might find this interesting, Glenn, is we follow a website called Crisis Cleanup, and it is a software, kind of browser-based software that people or organizations can go on and request help during natural disasters, and then other organizations can claim those work orders. And I logged in yesterday for this most recent ice storm to see, what's going on as far as needs across the Southeast. But I was still logged into Hurricane Helene.
When you logged back in.
Yeah, when I logged back in. And still to this day, there is 20,195 out of 70,000 unclaimed just tree removal work orders associated with Helene. And that's still this much,
this year and plus later.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that storm kind of was I don't think I overstated it, but I felt like when I stated it was pretty accurate that Helene was kind of like our generation's, or this decade's Katrina. It was very, very impactful as far as not as many fatalities, thank goodness, but just as far as impacts go, it was just it'll be talked about for a really long time. But as far as this ice storm goes, I think our team is headed to Mississippi most likely next week. Thankfully, Northeast Georgia didn't look like it got too bad of a hand dealt to it as far as tree damage goes. But we're
Habersham County got hit pretty hard. Their power was out for a long time. Nashville, I was looking at the pictures of Nashville. Boy, that's an ice storm.
Yeah, so as far as I do want to touch on one quick thing is, related to this ice storm. What is how did you think this ice storm verified, and do you what's your take on as far as social media? Is it harder to communicate through social media? Is it easier? What's like the positive and negatives being a meteorologist invested in social media?
Well, it's so tough when you're on social media. You have all these clickbait sites, and they're going to tell you what you want to hear. There's going to be a blizzard. There's going to be an ice storm, the likes of which we have not seen in our lifetimes,
Right.
just to get the number of clicks. So that really destroys any credibility at all, because when I'm on forecasting on social media and I make a forecast, people will come and post these on my page. They'll say, here, look at this. This guy's saying this. This guy's saying this. And I have to spend a lot of time disagreeing and saying, well,
right,
that's not the case. We're not getting a blizzard. We're not getting an ice storm of epic proportions here. So it's tough to battle that. I think social media does have its points where you can get the word out to a lot of people. Nobody's watching TV weather anymore. Sorry to say. I mean, the numbers are very low. When you have an ongoing, situation with a tornado or something, that's a bit different where people are watching you track live. But for the most part, they can open their phone and get the forecast. They don't need to wait until 6 o'clock to watch the news. So social media is a big part of that, and you can get the word out to, I think, a lot more people. So, you have an advantage there, but you also have the advantage of people doing that clickbait and arguing with each other, and it turns into mayhem sometimes.
Right.
Well, that was the purity of TV weather, is you watch it and you're giving us an honest forecast, and our response is personal, and like I might disagree or I might think whatever, but I don't have a way to talk back. And now the social media has created this talk back echo chamber where, you're putting out the same quality of information that you've spent 42 years putting out, and yet now the audience can retort or say what they want, and it's got to be frustrating.
Right. Yeah. And then last question before you go is what is your initial thoughts on the 2026 tornado season, just based on historical weather patterns and kind of what we're going into and what we're dealing with now this winter? Does that translate into March and April possibly?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're watching unprecedented things happen with the polar vortex. Normally you have one every couple of years. That was the way it used to be. This is going to be our third one this winter, with the one that's about to occur in February. When you have that type of a temperature contrast, you get that cold. You look at the other day in southwest Georgia, we had numerous tornado warnings. When you have the weather that's cold going into spring, that contrasting air, the wind shear has been enormous with these outbreaks of cold air. You're going to see some bad things. We've got a nor'easter that's brewing right now that's going to climb up the East Coast this weekend. It's got the central pressure of a Category 2 hurricane. So it's going to be basically a Category 2 hurricane with snow. You get that kind of violent weather with this polar vortex collapse. And that's going to go on in February as we get into severe weather season. So I think we could see a very active season. I think people need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, well, we definitely will be prepared for sure.
We
thank you so much, Glenn, for coming on and bearing with us with our first.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on.
Glenn, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk to you soon, and we'll be following you on social media.
Absolutely.
And you have a blessed rest of the day.
Thanks for all you do for the folks in Georgia. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You've done a lot for us. We appreciate it.
Take care, Glenn.
All right, we'll see you later.
So we just had Glenn. We just had Glenn Burns. He's our first guinea pig on this virtual thing, and I think if we can get this dialed in, it's gonna be huge for us.
Yeah.
Because we can invite just tons of people on here that aren't out of state, and there's so many people in my mind that I want to
people you want to talk to
just about weather, because I geek out about this stuff. But
And Glenn is just so kind.
That was awesome.
I mean, that was just, I've watched Glenn Burns since I moved to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Because when I moved here, the people I knew were like, it's like talking about the weather. They're like, oh, do you just watch this guy?
Yeah.
So, I was told just watch this guy.
Right.
And now I spent all the years. I mean, there were days when my kids were little. They were just, say 2012.
Yeah.
We're down there with an iPod Touch trying to watch WSB-TV in our closet, watching Glenn Burns with my kids wearing like batting helmets,
Right.
In the closet. I mean, it's just like he's guided my safety
Right.
in severe weather outbreaks for years.
Yeah.
And he's the guy I listen to.
Yeah, and I'll never forget that voice. As soon as he started talking today, I was like, "There's Glenn Burns' voice."
He said afternoon thunder showers, I think,
Right.
and I literally
Nostalgia.
could see him on the
my
TV
gosh,
saying it
yeah.
while he was saying it, which was so
I was
neat.
like 11 years old again,
Yeah.
eating oatmeal cream pies and drinking a caffeine-free Coke and in the kitchen.
Was that
and
your
there's
afternoon snack?
Well, that's probably one of them.
So my afternoon snack growing up was a bag of Ruffles potato chips and a Coca-Cola.
That's amazing.
And you wonder why, like,
Right.
my teeth are like they are.
Right. One thing I was hoping to get to talk to him about a little bit, but we'll talk about it hopefully with like James Spann or somebody is AI and weather, where that what are the pros and cons of AI, and weather and stuff. So that'll be a future episode. But we'll talk about that for sure.
When he mentioned Nashville, I mean, remember you and I were having this conversation about the gross AI pictures being posted on Facebook, being generated, and they're like, oh, here's what Oxford looks like, and here's what Nashville looks like. And I mean, there weren't cars on the road. There weren't 45 cars on the road, all strewn across the place, with one house crooked on the on the road.
Right.
Like every house in the picture was like aligned except for one.
And I'm always like, what make and model is that car? Like, because it generates
it's the one with two front ends.
Yeah, it's crazy. It generates these wild things.
Be careful, folks, where you get your news.
Yeah, for sure.
Trust people like Glenn Burns.
Yeah, and just hopefully, hopefully that gets kind of taken care of or regulated a little bit. But it's definitely makes our job a little bit harder for disaster response because we need that ground truth.
Yeah.
As far as like what's actually happening on the ground, and that definitely muddies the waters a little bit. But I think we're going to see a lot of that going forward, unfortunately. So we'll just have to be on guard for that sort of thing. I do like how he mentioned though we need to be prepared for this tornado season coming up because the southeast last year we did kind of skate by.
Yeah,
we had a couple of tornadoes. One in
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, Georgia that we responded to. But everything was primarily, I mean, they had a crazy active season, don't get me wrong, but it was mainly west of the Mississippi, west of FEMA Region 4 where we're at.
A lot in Arkansas. And
they had some in
Oklahoma.
Kentucky. They had the London, Kentucky, and Morganton and stuff like that. But as far as prolific, widespread, long track tornadoes, we didn't have it, and so I'm hoping that doesn't happen this year. But I do kind of feel like with how active everything is right now, like he was talking about the polar vortex and just these crashing cold fronts and stuff like that, I think if we do sustain that type of energy into especially March and April when we get a really warm Gulf, I do think that we could see some bad time severe weather. So we're going to keep monitoring that for sure. And like I said, our team is most likely headed to Mississippi in the next couple of days, Tippah County, to hang out with God's pit crew for a little while. Yeah, Chris Childs out there.
Work with other organizations, which we really love to do.
Love to do that. And I really hope we're going to have Chris Childs on this podcast at some point. He's another tree guy. And he's
you can do that. No, I'm just kidding.
He's awesome, man.
I won't have anything to say. I just cut him.
Right. No, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
And helps lead the disaster. He's the disaster response coordinator over at God's Pit Crew.
Yeah.
Amazing organization over there. Another thing we got coming up is in mid-February. I'm going to be talking at the disaster response roundtable, the network
Birmingham this year.
Birmingham, yeah. I'm going to be doing a weather forecasting and monitoring workshop to give some pointers on what I do as far as monitoring before and during and immediately after.
So cool to hear Glenn talking about what he did.
Yeah.
Like the way he would, evaluate the models day by day by day,
Right.
and didn't listen to the first model like everybody did with this recent thing.
Right.
Everybody was like, first model shows like 22 inches of snow, and then it's like by the time it gets there.
It's definitely I don't envy his job to be able to communicate that stuff, because it is extremely complex. And I just want to ask, all of our viewers, or the 4 people that watch this podcast,
our friends,
right? Yeah, is really be patient with local meteorologists and stuff, because they we hear the joke all the time. Oh, it must be nice to be wrong 50% of the time,
still have a job.
Yeah, and still have a job. And then like that same person's like, like, what is the rain total or snow total for my specific house 7 days in advance? Like, you obviously need that information. So they're trying to convey that to you.
Yeah.
And it's an extremely complex science.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's differential equations on steroids. And even when the biggest computers in the world have a hard time determining what the weather's going to be like, it's just one of those
and AI
things.
Models, they're not getting it right now.
They will. I think they will.
Maybe they will one day, but right now they're spitting out some crazy stuff that doesn't align with what typically happens.
Right, and that's just one of those things, man. But we just ask everybody to be patient with those guys, because they're
find somebody you trust.
Yeah,
and just follow them. Like, don't
you get lost in the weeds.
There's so many. I mean, even like Facebook's all ads now. So if you log into Facebook, it knows I like the weather.
Right.
So it's feeding me all these pages of like so and so's weather page, and I'm like, yeah, but who are you? It's just all these different things and so I'm always kind of looking. What does Brad Nitz say? What does Glenn Burns say? Even other Chris Holcomb at 11 Alive. What are these other like local meteorologists, people that are putting in the work, saying about the weather?
Right.
It's important
there's
to follow
those
people.
A lot of pages out there, like you were saying, as clickbait. There are some pages that have really good information as well, but like you said, you gotta spend some time figuring that out, because there's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to the weather. But it's all about clicks. Speaking of which, click like on this video, subscribe to our channel.
Well done.
And hit that bell, to get our latest notifications.
Ding, ding.
So really appreciate everybody watching, tuning in. This is episode 8. We're going to be doing a lot more of these, especially now that when we figure out and work all the kinks out of this online, virtual podcasting thing. So, but stay tuned. We got some pug truck stuff coming up.
Okay.
And we're just going to be hitting it hard the next couple of months. So sorry if I sound nasally. I am coming off of a cold. So
another good reason to do this virtually.
Virtually COVID.
Because I'm not going to get sick.
No, I'm good now. But all right, guys, take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.